This is a Headgum podcast.
Hello, this is Fake the Nation, where we talk about news, we talk about culture, and where, like Tom Cruise before us, we parachute down into the Stade de Podcast, grab the audio flag, and carry it around via motorcycle and aircraft carrier. I am your host, Negin Farsad, and the Olympics has ended with such a crazy splash, and I was cheering for all of it, all alone in my living room. Today, we're not going to talk about that, but we will talk about the Trump world, what they've experienced the last few weeks. Spoiler alert, and this might be surprising for some of you, Trump is still unpleasant. Still an unpleasant dude. We'll also talk about Kamala's Nevada strategy. We'll talk about raw-dogging flights. And finally, can you drug your spouse without telling them? Just like a light little relationship question. Okay. I am so excited about today's panel. We are joined for the millionth time by my very good friend. She's an artist, she's a filmmaker, she's so prolific, and she's in so many mediums, from filmmaking to physical arts with your hands to sewing things and making stuff, and I am constantly in awe. She's actually got a live performance piece at the Jewish Current Conference on September 15th. If you are in New York City, that is the place to be. It is the wonderful Danielle Durchslag. Hey, Danielle.
Can you bring that microphone? Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Perfect.
Like this? My bad. Hey, Nikki. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
I mean, the number one rule of podcasting, Danielle, is have the microphone by your face.
You know, and that's what I'm learning today.
Yeah. Despite having been on this podcast so many times,
True.
It's wild.
True story.
That
We're
one
all new
lesson
every day. That's right.
Okay, so we're also joined. Oh my gosh, you guys! Now listen, I have probably talked about their work on this show as I talk about political things and about to taking action and how to take action. So you have probably heard me talk about the work of this woman. She is the founder and co-executive director of Indivisible, which has just been so incredible in the last couple of elections. So I'm so happy to have her here, and her expertise at this very, very crucial time for all of us. It is the wonderful Leah Greenberg. Hey, Leah.
Hey, so glad to be here.
So glad to have you. And just quick question. Did you guys watch Tom Cruise parachute into the Stade de France?
I did not.
Oh my God, you guys have no fucking idea what I'm talking about?
Not in particular, no.
Oh my God. Upset that you guys don't know what I'm talking about.
Apparently it flew under the radar.
Okay, like little quick recap.
Let's do it.
The closing ceremonies for the Olympics, which were in obviously Paris, were phenomenal, crazy, very dramatic, whatever. And then they do a handoff from like the city that just did it to the next city. The next city is going to be LA 2028. And the way they did the handoff, so there was like the boring part where the mayor's there and she fucking waves a flag, whatever. But the fucking crazy part was Tom Cruise was in the roof of the stadium. He parachutes down because the motherfucker is an action star and we're going to Los Angeles, bitches, and America's fucking amazing. He parachutes down. He fucking grabs the flag from the mayor, right? He fucking puts the flag on a motorcycle and then motorcycles out of the stadium and then through the streets of Paris and into the countryside and whatever. Obviously, this part was like short film territory. And then he gets on and he fucking motorcycles right onto an aircraft carrier.
Oh my God.
And then skydives out of the aircraft carrier. Okay. Onto a field in Nebraska and Forrest Gump style. That would be a crazy mashup. Forrest Gump style runs to Los Angeles where he affixes the fucking Olympic rings to the Hollywood sign himself using crazy Tom Cruise acrobatics.
Right.
And then they fucking throw to fucking Red Hot Chili Peppers doing a song, followed by Billie Eilish doing a song, followed by Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. I mean, I'm proud to be an American where I need no rapper. Guys, it was the most incredible, 20 minutes of television I've ever seen. And as much as I shit on LA, I really fucking thought they nailed this little handoff. So, you have to, people, please Google.
Well, it's just another reminder to all of us that being high up in a cult really keeps you young. You know, it really helps you with agility, long-term health. I mean, that man has been, under the auspices of Scientology for so long, he can do anything.
And look, and also like bonus points for if you really pay attention to when Tom Cruise has to walk through a bunch of Olympic athletes and coaches and stuff like that to get to the stage.
Yeah, what do you see?
A ton of people are trying to like take photos with him, or like they're trying to like be like close to him. One woman, I don't know where, she's all of our moms, this woman, so embarrassing. She fucking grabs Tom Cruise and gives him a kiss on the cheek. It was the most, if I am that woman's daughter, I'm literally killing myself. Like, what a horrifying moment, but also how adorable. Anyways, so yeah, he looks great. I mean, to the point where these moms around the world want to, stop him and kiss him on the cheeks.
Negin, as you know, in general, not for others, but for myself, I'm pretty anti-physical exertion. It's just not something I'm fond of.
We've
watching
talked about.
Others exert is not necessarily my jam. But I do have to say, what strikes me about the story is I can't remember the last time I saw Tom Cruise star in a film where he spoke more than he moved.
Oh, yeah.
So this is in keeping with his brand. It sounds like they chose the right guy.
I agree. And what's wild is he's a great actor. And listen, I know we need to start the show, but I really, really had to share this with everybody because it was so, okay. So please Google, please tell me what you think. Before we get into it, I just want to remind listeners that you can go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to support the show on Patreon. For as little as $4 a month, you get bonus episodes of the show. We just uploaded one where Danny Faith Leonard and Chloe Radcliffe joined me to discuss this issue that was really fucking painful to all three of us. It was whether this particular dude is an asshole for telling his girlfriend that she'll never be a real comedian.
Oh.
Yeah, as you can imagine, shit got heated for the three of us. Yeah. It hit close to home.
Yeah.
It's possible that my husband wants to give me this speech every day. I don't know. We don't know. You know what I mean? So, anyway, so go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to join in on all the fun. And let's get into it with topic number 1. You guys. Trump is flailing. He's saying that Kamala's crowd-sized images are AI. Meanwhile, he's golfing more than he's campaigning. And when he is campaigning, he's still talking about Stop the Steal. And he has really lost the ability to come up with nicknames. After several months of bashing Biden and saying that he was not fit to run, that he was too old, Trump actually got his way. Biden isn't running. But now that it's Kamala, he's all thumbs and racism. So my question, so we read a little bit of reporting about how Trump is doing the last few weeks since this like seismic shakeup. I don't know, Leah, why can't Trump pivot, or do you see a pivot, or where do you, just tell us, where do you see the state of the race on that end?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think the first thing you have to remember anytime you're thinking about Trump is you're basically talking about an overgrown toddler, and that's not entirely fair to toddlers, right? Like he's not a particularly mature person. He is a person who stays pretty fixated. And in this case, he thought he was going to win against President Biden. He was feeling pretty confident and excited. He made a seriously bad VP pick during the height of his excitement. He has not successfully figured out how to adjust or switch up or, land any kind of meaningful hit on Kamala Harris so far. And he's not really like a super disciplined guy. Like when he's not doing well and not having fun, he's not someone who like digs in and does more. He pulls back.
I like how you said, he's not a super disciplined guy. Like he's mildly disciplined. he's not at all disciplined. Like a discipline and him are not in the same room ever.
Right.
Yeah.
He is not known for his discipline. Right. Exactly. And so, this is not fun right now. And so he's pulling back. He's letting JD Vance do most of the talking. That's not going great for anyone. Like this is, none of this is the sign of a campaign that is on track. It's a sign of people who know that they are going downhill and don't have a plan to fix it.
Danielle, how do you feel?
I never anticipated that I would have political joy, period, right now, which I'm having. But I especially didn't anticipate the wonder and splendor of watching Trump and his usual rhetoric be received as boring. It's become dull and repetitive. We've heard that specific bigotry. We've heard these specific lies so many times. I think the wonderful kind of really clear comparison between him and Kamala, part of that is that she feels fresh and new and like she's coming in with joyful, renewed energy, and he's looking stale. And I think on some level he knows that, which is why in this moment of inequity and all kinds of issues people are concerned about, he's talking about crowd size.
Yeah.
Right? It reads as elderly, it reads as stale and repetitive. And frankly, if I'm being really honest, and I don't think Negin would have these feelings because you're a better person than me, but if I was being very honest, I would say the schadenfreude of watching him flail is quite enjoyable.
Well, I mean, also, he did this, Elon Musk and Trump had a conversation, qua circle jerk, on Twitter. And that was like the other day. And it was, of course, it's so funny because it was immediately beset by technical problems. We all remember the innovative, first ever to happen Twitter launch of the Ron DeSantis campaign, which was also beset by technical problems. Elon cannot stop having conversations with right-wing conservatives in which none of the audio works. But it's interesting because talk about boring. Like ladies and gentlemen, I'm such a motherfucking patriot that I tried to listen to that whole thing for you guys.
You sacrificed
commitment
for you. I sacrificed for you guys.
Yeah.
And I sacrificed to the tune of like half of it. Because, and they would start going into a thing, and then I would just be like, this is fucking going on for, and I would like fast forward to try to get to some other part. It was incredibly boring because like obviously it wasn't an interview, it was like a chat between a guy and another guy who was trying to lick that guy's boots,
right? And
so it was and then they're like both billionaires except for one of them is maybe not a billionaire, but anyway, and so it was just like really, it was just really people who were not in touch at all. And it was also interesting because there was moments where Elon was getting into this whole thing of like, we could put tunnels underground. I'm like, we discovered tunnels. You're not the first. We knew about tunnels. You have the Boring Company, right? And he loves to talk about his Boring Company. And he has a little stretch of thing that he bored with his Boring Company in Las Vegas, which all of the reporting has shown has not actually alleviated any of the traffic reasons that thing was put in place for, that he thinks tunnels are the solution, that he invented tunnels. And so, and it's like, so it was like, he went into a whole thing about that. And then Trump was just like, yeah, you're brilliant. You've got a brilliant mind. You're brilliant. And then when it wasn't that, it was Elon. And he would just say stuff like, they're sending people from insane asylums to America or whatever. And you're like, what? Who are they? Like, because the reporting has been, and I have actually resisted saying this, but the more you go back, it's sort of like in Sixth Sense, when you go back and you're like, oh my God, that fucking kid was never there.
Yeah.
You go back and you listen to these speeches and you're like, he doesn't realize that declaring asylum is different from someone being in an insane asylum.
Correct.
Nope.
And it's hilarious. It's like it's such an M. Night Shyamalan twist, like to his entire campaign rhetoric. It's I can't even. But let me ask you guys this. He talked a lot about in this interview that Kamala hasn't sat down for like an interview, or she hasn't done a press conference. Leah, are you feeling like, does that make you itchy?
It doesn't make me itchy. It makes me, first of all, I think it's hilarious that he said that on a conversation with a friendly billionaire, right? Like,
right.
interviewing is a skill. It is not a skill that Elon Musk has. It requires being curious about other people. This was just kind of a train of consciousness, set of rambles from two rich old guys who are mostly yucking it up about firing workers and busting unions, right? The chutzpah to do that on a call that is technically malfunctioning because you fired all those workers. I don't have that. It's pretty impressive. But fundamentally, like, Kamala Harris is busy. She got handed a campaign. She had 100 days to win this campaign. She got handed it 2 weeks ago. She has a lot of stuff to do. And she's building out policy platforms. She is talking to all of the stakeholder groups. She's making her way across the swing states. She is getting hit by these asks around, sit for an interview. She'll do that. But like, I think that the imbalance in the way that the press is attacking, her for not sitting for an interview in this like absolutely, bananas period of time, like, every single minute allocated, and you got to prep, you've got to do a bunch of stuff. She's busy. I'm confident she'll do it. She's done it in the past. She's done them well in the past. And also, I think it's just an example of the imbalance in how the media interacts with the candidacies, that she is getting, pushed on this question so much by press that, has expectations of her as being a functional, normal politician, and has incredibly low expectations of the Trump campaign in the same regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that they're trying to hang on Walz's shoulders. JD Vance is accusing Walz of Tim Walz, that's the VP pick, of a stolen valor situation because, I mean, the controversy here is, I mean, I don't mean to like immediately give you my opinion, but I feel like it's silly. But he basically said at some point we should have gun control because I'm paraphrasing, but you shouldn't be able to carry the same kind of gun I've carried in combat on the street or whatever. Like that's kind of, now the guy has served in the National Army Reserve for 24 years. And he technically did not see combat, right? He was technically stationed in Italy. Look, I didn't realize I guess he was there kind of training people who then did see combat or whatever. I guess there's a bunch of hierarchy in terms of like where you get put and stuff like that. Like, I guess what a fucking asshole. He only got stationed in Italy. You know, I don't know.
He only committed himself for 24 years.
Only 24 years.
24
what a fucking
years.
piece of shit. But yeah. So, I mean, this stolen valor thing, does that work with anyone? Yeah. And they're also talking about his reaction to the George Floyd, to the George Floyd thing. So there was like, you know, some violence that had erupted during the marches and stuff like that. And the mayor had called for the Army Reserves, and he actually deployed them, or like he asked for them to be deployed, but the morning after the ask or something, because apparently like at the moment of the ask from the mayor, he said, well, we need a plan. And then so that was like kind of the delay. So this is another thing that they're trying to be like, you mishandled it. So I don't know, like, Danielle, do you feel like any of that is like doing something? Is JD Vance is out there attacking? Is it working?
My short answer is no. It clearly is not working. I think those attacks combined with, I totally agree with Leah, this disproportionate focus on Harris not doing an interview yet speaks to how thin their story is, because they're pulling, frankly, like old canards that we've heard a million times. Everyone here old enough to remember the Swift boats?
Oh yeah.
We've been here before. These are the same tricks they always pull out. I think that lack of creativity in their attacks really speaks to the fact that they are flailing. They're flailing for content. They're flailing for, you know, messaging that's really going to land. I don't think it's landing. And I also think, unlike with John Kerry, we have two humans here in Harris and Walz who are just objectively gorgeously likable. And when people are that likable and exude joy and likability that successfully on stage, I don't think these thin arguments make the same kind of dent. You know, I voted for Kerry, but he did have the warmth and personality of cardboard, you know, let's be honest. Whereas with these two, there's a charisma and a sense of deep connection that's so organic. I just don't think these arguments are really making a dent. And they're so repetitive. We've heard absolutely all of them on other Democrats when they've tried to attack them. I don't, from my sense, but I'm interested what Leah thinks, I don't think it's making much of a dent. I mean, look at the numbers.
I also think there's kind of a generational shift in how Democrats respond to these kinds of attacks, right? Like when John Kerry got Swift voted, they were sort of like, this is beneath our dignity to respond. Nobody is going to believe this stuff. Right. Democrats these days are going to punch back, right? So they're not going to sort of just ignore the smears. They're actually going to take them head on, and they're going to hit back. And I think you've seen Tim Walz do that effectively. I think you've seen the entire Democratic ecosystem do that effectively in this case. You know, and the other bigger thing is, it's these, you know, I think the fact that it took you quite a long time to explain exactly what were the stories behind these smears sums up the issue. This is so in the weeds. Somebody is mad that a guy who served for 24 years did not serve for 28 years or 30 years. Like, what are we talking about here? You know, this is all, this is thin gruel.
It's also like, there's like such an empathy gap between these two groups of people.
Yes.
Like where, you know, you're sort of like, I feel like, you know, like Tim Walz would pull Hitler out of the line of a truck going by because he just is not going to let someone die that way. You know what I mean? Like I just think he has ethics up the butt.
Enough ethics to save Hitler? Is that
I mean, like that was a bad example. You know what I mean? I just think he's just like, this is not my job to let someone die right now,
Right.
like, or whatever. Even if this person's horrible, like, this is not how we do it. We do it by due process, or whatever. Okay,
Right.
Yeah.
We do it with the International Court of Justice. You know what I mean? Like, he would have like a nice argument for that. Not a great example, but my point is just like there's such an empathy gap between the two sides, and I think it's not one of the. I think, one of the things could be like the strategies could be, like, let's present nicer. Like Trump and Vance could say to each other, all right, bud, like, let's go out and be like super nice,
You think that tool is in their kit?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just like, they can't even, I think they're trying. I think this is it. I think we're seeing it. This is their attempt at being nice. And it's just like, it just doesn't work.
Okay, did either of you see JD Vance get interviewed like in a random thing, and someone asked him, "Hey, like, what do you do for fun? What makes you smile?" Did you see his response?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember what he said, Leah? He was like, "Stupid questions from reporters make me smile." No,
like,
not the spirit of the question, sir. Even when they're handed a being nice invitation on a verbal pillow, they can't do it.
I mean, dude, play along.
Right.
Oh my God. I'm looking at this dude like, and genuinely shocked that he won his senatorial race, like with this attitude, which is, I'm sure, the attitude that we saw. I wasn't that tuned into that race, but like now that I'm seeing him in this, in the VP stakes, it's just like, it's shocking. Let's quickly talk about Kamala, who basically she is taking on this restaurant workers tips policy. Trump had introduced it. She's also introduced it with theoretically more guardrails, but basically the idea is not to tax tipped work, the tips, the actual tips. What do you think about this policy, Leah? Do you think it's going to make a dent? And obviously she did this in Las Vegas. Nevada is a big state for us to win. These unions care very deeply about their tips. What do you think?
And I mean, look, she is the candidate who is endorsed by the culinary union, right? Like, these are the folks who are going to be in her corner, for whom this is a very tangible policy. And, there's a little bit of a bust up about like, oh, did she, Trump accusing her of stealing policies? And the distinction I think that's important to make is that, like a lot of Republican policies, what Trump was talking about in many ways was potentially, a popular sounding thing that could actually be retrofitted to be a giveaway to Wall Street workers who could structure their compensation in ways to meet this kind of framework, right? And so, I think what we're looking at is it's not the same set of policies necessarily, and it's also it's actually structured to help working people as opposed to structured to potentially present yet another giveaway to the rich.
Now, listen, before we close up this segment, I wanted to hear you in your official position at Indivisible talk to us about how to channel our enthusiasm. I am having. Like I talked to Danielle about this. I'm so fucking excited.
Yes.
That I can't contain myself. And I know that there's other people like me, and I want to know what to do with the excitement that's making me so crazy.
Absolutely. Oh, well, that is my favorite question. That is what we are here to do at Indivisible. And I only tell you, it has been a busy and exciting time because we are seeing a ton of people who, they might be politically engaged, but they really want to like do more right now. And what I would say is the most important thing is figuring out what's your organizing home, what's your base, whether that's local, whether that's, a community locally that you can plug into, make connections, get involved, whether that is an online home that will help you with taking strategic actions. Indivisible.org obviously can connect people. And if you sign up with us, then we send you what is the most strategic set of things you can do based on your geography every week. But we're also seeing this like huge wave where we're trying to really help people turn their energy and their enthusiasm into local organizing infrastructure that's going to actually get us elected, get Vice President Harris elected, and then power the kind of advocacy that can pass her exciting agenda, right? Everything from reproductive freedom to democracy reform and voting rights to a care agenda. we're going to have to keep pushing for all that stuff. So we want to make sure that people are hooked up and organized and developing their activism. And right now what we're doing actually is we launched, coming out of the Answer the Call, one of the big Zooms that were held for Kamala Harris in the early days, we've actually launched a regular organizing series called Women Wednesdays for Harris, where we're walking people through forming a local team of people who are dedicated to electing Harris and taking strategic actions. Like this week, we're doing house parties to mark the convention. We're asking people to, make Kamala-themed cocktails, invite people who are excited about Kamala, plug them into a phone bank or plug them into talking to your neighbors if they live in a swing state, help them actually make the jump between we're excited, we're being social, to we've got an action we can take that's actually going to help elect Kamala Harris, and then help them keep coming back in the future. So what I would say is, wherever, the most important thing is simply to get started taking an action, because that stuff, it's sticky. Once you start doing it, you'll find yourself doing more. And then also figure out how to get involved with a local community where there are other people who you're actually building relationships with, and that will keep you involved the same way that having a gym buddy helps you stay involved going to the gym.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that. Danielle, have you done anything exciting, or have you thought about doing something?
Yeah, I'd say I definitely plan to contribute to the campaign, and I definitely plan to do some phone banking and some door knocking. I like doing all that stuff, especially in the cycle where I'm as excited as I am now. But I would say, most of us know someone who's just not very politically plugged in.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't orient their life around this stuff. And what I found is just sharing my exuberance, just sharing
Yes, that's real.
How truly joyful I feel about this, turn of events. It is a little contagious, right?
Yeah.
When Negin and I are both filmmakers, on a set, when you come in excited for the day,
you set the tone.
You set that tone, and everyone meets it. I think that's also true conversationally. So what I've been doing is spreading a lot of Kamala dancing memes to the people I know and love. And really, whenever possible, remember that moment, everybody, where she looked in the camera from the stage and said, "If you have something to say it to my face."
Yeah.
Just sending that around to my less politically plugged in folks, I really got a lot of feedback of whoa, this lady knows what she's doing. I think spreading enthusiasm counts for a lot.
Oh, I love that. Also, there's a ton of organizations I know in New York City. They're arranging buses from New York to Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So there's there's the idea of you might be living in a blue district, but very close to you is a red district that, you could just easily take a day trip and make it fun. You know what I mean? And go eat lunch at a weird, fun place in that town. Turn it into a thing. Again, this should be fun. And also, abortion's on the ballot in a lot of states.
Which is fun.
Which is so fun. But it's but it's motivating. You know what I mean? It's so motivating. Let's get this shit codified. So there's so much to do. Can you remind us again, if they want to get in on the fun with Indivisible, where do they go?
If you go to indivisible.org, you can sign up, and we will be sending you your actions that you can take immediately. One thing I would add there too is you might be surprised by how close the competitive district is to you. Because the reality is, when we're looking at what it takes to flip the House, a lot of those competitive districts, the top two states are New York and California. So I hear a lot of times from people who say, "Oh, I'm in a blue state. What am I going to do?" And the reality is, there's actually a ton of places that might be closer than you think that are really competitive and that are going to need all of the door knocking help they can get. So think about, how do you arrange that trip with your friends to actually spend a weekend out there sometime in September or October?
Oh, amazing. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue. Okay, and we're ready for our topic number 2. The word rawdogging has been a favorite among comedians, and it has almost always been used with its original intent, to discuss boning without protection. For comedians, using that term is a rite of passage. It is a sacred term on the comedy stage. We have all had bits about rawdogging, and I don't mean to sound like fucking Clarence Thomas here with my original construction of the term, but it is really about sex without a condom, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But in the last few months, I've seen the term everywhere, and what I really want to talk about, one of its particular uses, which is rawdogging flights. Now that means going on a flight and just sitting there, no entertainment, just staring, You're allowed to turn on the flight monitor, but that's it. First of all, I guess just Danielle, what do you think of raw dogging flights?
I think it's so stupid. You know, I guess if it had some kind of spiritual mandate assigned to it, you know, and therefore I followed my breath and stopped my intrusive thoughts. I don't know. It doesn't seem to have any of those components. It's just bragging about staring into space for hours. Can someone explain the benefit to me?
Leah, can you explain the benefit?
I cannot. And I have to tell you, I had a specific reaction to this because I have sat next to people who are doing this. And my experience is that they do not, in fact, stare into space the entire time, that they start trying to talk to me. And I am on the flight and I am listening to my music. And I am not interested, you know, in having that conversation just because you did not bring entertainment. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, I have no problem with the term. I do want you to think very carefully if you're not bringing any entertainment on a flight.
Can you say what the general demographic was of these people that you sat next to?
Men. I can say that pretty fast.
Okay, because it has taken, like, you know, it has caught fire on, like, male TikTok. That's not a thing. But, like, men's doing stuff TikTok or whatever.
Is this like a new masculinity stoicism test?
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it, but yes, I mean, I think like in some circles are sort of like likening it again to the spiritual element that you're talking about, Danielle, to like meditation, except for it's on a plane in the most uncomfortable place you could possibly meditate.
Bothering a woman who's sitting next to you who's trying to listen to music is not meditative.
I
just want to point that out for the listeners in case anyone's confused.
Well, because I think they're probably doing it badly because there's nothing in the rules I've read about raw dogging flights that says, you know, talk to the person next to you. I mean, some of them aren't even drinking water, for the record, which no health practitioner actually approves of because being on flights actually dehydrates you. So you should actually drink more water when you're on flight.
So in this kind of, okay, if we're following this logic, then the Buddha, if he wanted to, if the Buddha had actually wanted to not find enlightenment, but in fact find, let's say, a masculine ascendance, then instead of meditating for all those years, he would have just sat. Just sitting with just no purpose or meaning. Which of those sounds better to you?
I mean, okay, here's my other question. Was there a time in life where we used to do things that were maybe like a little odd and it didn't turn into a think piece?
Oh,
you know what I mean? Where what didn't get a turn, it wasn't coined. That we weren't coining things. We were just like, yeah, guys, I like to do this weird thing where like I stare and play and I don't fucking listen to anything or watch the movies. And that conversation happened at a brunch.
Right.
And then that was it. It ended there. It died right there. And that person could even be like, it's kind of like raw dogging a flight. And then your friend would be like, you're an idiot. And then that would, again, that would be, it would be it. That would be it. Like, I think there's something about it's like the commodification of personal routine or something that I think it's the memification of like dumb shit. There's something about this thing that feels very just like we're doing this because the internet and we all want content. So we're always coming up with like names, you know, throwing them online, you know, making a fucking TikTok video. Also, all the TikTok videos, they have to be of you in your car for some reason, having a conversation. I don't understand why a person has to be in like a parking lot to coin a term. You know what I mean? Okay, but I don't know. I'm tired of it. Do you guys like this? I feel like we're peak naming stuff. And I want it to be the event. You know,
what it reminds me of, I will say, is that there's a very popular Twitter tendency to say, normalize doing this, normalize doing that. And my reaction to that is always like, you don't have to normalize it. You could just be a little weird. Just do whatever. Like, I don't need to know about your, random sanitary habits or whatever you're trying to normalize here. Like,
yeah. Also, I think everyone thinks too much that something is about them. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to normalize doing this or that because I'm not even thinking about you.
Right. I mean,
right.
Internally, we're all the star of our own movie.
Yeah.
That's been true as long as humans have been around. But there's something about this device in our hands, right, that makes us be able to project that fantasy into the world. I'm the star of your movie, too, even if it's only for 10 seconds, and my starring role is staring into space.
All right, let's move on quickly. I have an update about robots because last week we talked about a New York State program that pairs the LEQ robot with elders who were lonely, and I got a ton of reactions from people about this. It was actually more reactions than I got about anything we've talked about in the last few months. And I wanted to share two of those reactions with you guys and quickly hear from you as well about what you think. But from Nicole, we heard that she writes, since you're a Francophile, as am I wonder if you saw the New Yorker piece a few years ago about France using its mail carriers, La Poste, to check in on the elderly. I forget if the system was scalable, but I know it was proving very effective in looking out for the vulnerable who may be far from family, etc. Of course, there would be unfathomable blowback from conservatives about socializing the USPS, but that will be true about any proposal to use federal government to do anything that helps people. Thank you so much, Nicole, because last week I talked about the WPA for elderly companions. I thought, like, that's what we should launch. We should launch a WPA for elderly companions, and France is essentially doing something like akin to that in this mini measure of having elderly check-ins using the Postal Service, which I just think is brilliant. I mean, it's almost as brilliant as the Olympics flag handoff. Okay. And I don't know, Danielle, what do you, I know we talk about shit like this all the time, but like, what do you think of this measure?
I think when you think about sort of the epidemic of loneliness that we have in the United States, which seems very much connected to how much we ignore and don't really care for the elderly, right? You really become invisible fundamentally at a certain stage of life here in this country. The idea of any system that checks in on you. First of all, there's just like the boots on the ground benefits of that. We're going to know who's struggling, who can't come to the door, if someone's fallen. All of that data comes to someone who hopefully can do something about it. But also, I think it's a way of society at large saying to you as an elder, we give a shit.
Yeah, we give a shit.
We give a shit about how you're doing.
By the way, a great title for the program, the WPA program.
Give a shit. That's it. And in this country, to feel that from a kind of larger entity than just your immediate family, I always think is beneficial.
Leah, I wanted to get your thoughts on this next message that we got from Scott. Now, again, these were robots that were being used by the elderly as companions. They're AI, and they can talk with you. They can have real, long conversations, kind of intricate conversations. And so this is what Scott writes. He writes, it's good to be concerned about the potential impact on human caregiver jobs, but in this case, it may not be a problem. My dad spent his last few years in an assisted living skilled nursing facility. And while there will always be a need for human touch, there's also a significant need for muscle, getting people in and out of bed, in and out of chairs, on and off the toilet, helping them shower. And I can see those things being done well by robots. And I'll bet the human staff would gladly leave the muscle task to the robots so they have more time/energy for human activities. And God, thank you so much for that message, Scott, because to be honest, I hadn't thought of that. This particular program, LEQ, is just all about the chatter and the reminders and all that stuff. But there is a world where robots are being trained and developed to do exactly that. Leah, what do you think of kind of broadening the scope of what we think of robots doing?
Well, look, I think anytime we can move the robot discourse more towards doing, hard manual things so that other people are freed up and are able to save their bodies for, forming relationships, meaningful tasks, et cetera, that's great, right? The problem with the AI discourse over the last couple of years has been that the robots are doing the creative fun work, and then, the people are having to do the answering.
Yes.
Like, anywhere we can figure out a way to switch that up so that humans are back in charge of creative and relational and things that actually involve a human touch, and AI is not in charge of, answering the phone for the customer service, but you actually talk to a person, like, those are all better, or that's all better.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Okay, so thanks again so much for everyone who responded about that and shared their ideas. I love talking about that, and I loved hearing all of your reactions. Now let's move into topic number 3. Okay, so there's this piece that was in The Ethicist, and I couldn't help but talk about it. But basically, I'll read you the little thing that the woman wrote, or the guy wrote. I think it's a guy. He wrote, a woman I know often complains about her manic husband. He is a war veteran in his late 50s who owns a very successful business and is the primary breadwinner for their family. They have no children. The wife, a woman in her early 60s who works part-time and is dependent on his income, recently told me she dissolves melatonin in the water he takes with him to work in order to, quote, calm him down. She said, quote, I told him it was a nutritional supplement, something to help him because he sometimes doesn't eat lunch. I looked a bit shocked at her confession, and she immediately justified her actions by saying, you don't have to live with him. He doesn't take his medications. Now he's calmer. She didn't ask his permission to add melatonin to his drinking water. He goes on to talk about melatonin isn't regulated in the United States, so it's not technically drugging, and it's not technically elder abuse because the husband's not 65 or older. But I'm seriously considering, this is what this person, going back to this letter, I'm seriously considering revealing his subterfuge to her husband, whom I know she didn't swear me to secrecy. In fact, I sensed from the way she was telling her story that I wasn't the first person to hear of this. Unfortunately, I have no confidence that confronting her would have an impact. She likes him better now that she's secretly giving him substances with no regard for his long-term health or the deception. If my wife did this to me, I'd be apoplectic. I'd appreciate Danielle, what is your counsel?
This is bananas. As I was reading it, I thought there are several issues here, but it seems to me the central one is actually a marital communication issue.
Yeah.
If you've come to a place in your union where you feel so not prepared for having a difficult conversation about behavior and mental health that your immediate thought is, I know, I'll spike his drink and tell my friends about it. Something's gone horribly wrong in this union. So if I was this person writing in, I would talk to her and I would say, listen, like, I'm happy to help you. Let's talk to him together about his mental health challenges. But drugging people is not only legal, it's extraordinarily unethical. So I'm anti melatonin in the water. And the other thought I have is, they covered this a little bit in their answer. Like, melatonin is a supplement we traditionally take for sleep.
Yeah.
If this gentleman falls asleep behind the wheel, God forbid, and has a horrible accident, not only could he endanger his life, but the lives of others. And then how is she going to feel? It's just, she's not a doctor. This is unethical. And really, fundamentally, I think these are two people who need some communication help, really, about their marriage and how they interact.
Yeah. Leah, what do you think?
100%. This is a marriage issue, not a, tactical. Like if you're at that point in your tactics and something's gone terribly wrong upstream. But
Yes.
I also had this reaction. I was thinking about, it's not, is it technically a drug, et cetera, et cetera. And, the closest parallel that I was imagining was if it turned out that somebody had swapped my coffee for decaf, months and months ago and not told me, or my husband had done that, like that would be a massive breach of trust in our marriage.
Yeah.
So, any kind of like, if you're trying to alter someone's mood chemically rather than talking to them, you have problems.
That's right.
I agree, but let me play devil's advocate here for a quick sec.
I knew this was coming.
Because no. This is okay. So when I was a teenager, I spent a lot of time in my youth listening to my mom and her sisters gossip. Mm-hmm. Okay, it was one of the joys of my life.
Right.
And I remember my aunt telling a story about a friend she had in Iran. Okay, who was married to a guy who was garbage, and he was mean and violent. And she started, I believe, using, what's the pot? Prozac. Putting just Prozac in his tea or something. And okay, could be lore. I don't know, but this could just be Iranian fucking lore. But apparently then the marriage was great. And they got along really well.
Well,
I'm promoting this. But I just remember hearing the story, like as a teenager, filing it away in my noggin. And I'll tell you what I thought about that time. I thought to myself, you poor bitches are in a generation where you have to put up with guys who were like, who controlled all the finances, who controlled, and in Iran, they control so much more than just the finances. And so you had to come up with clever and unethical ways of dealing with a marriage that sucks. And my generation won't have to do that. And that's what I thought. That was my first of all, I mean, I thought this was hilarious, and then secondly, I thought all of those other smarter things. But we don't know if someone is in a situation like that. Do you feel where it's like a shit husband in a shit country? What do you think?
I think the difference between abuse and preference is profound. So this woman who wrote it, this guy who wrote it, and the woman who's doing this behavior, it's because she prefers her husband a different way.
Yeah.
She prefers him calmer.
Yeah.
When this kind of choice is the only thing standing between you and physical safety, that's a totally different scenario, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm interested. Leah, what do you think?
Oh, 100%. Those are just completely different factors.
Yeah. Okay. Well, folks, I think our position on this is clear. My Iranian tall tales notwithstanding, but it is an interesting thought experiment to think about this kind of situation. You know, yeah, this story felt like more preference than it did urgency.
Correct.
All right, that, my friends, is the end of the show. My God. What a wonderful conversation we had. I'm so glad to share this time with the two of you. Before I actually... Yes, I would love for the people of Faith the Nation to be able to follow you and all of the wonderful things that you do. Danielle, where do they do that?
Thanks for having me, Negin. You can find me at DanielleDurchslag.com. You won't spell it correctly, but you'll still find me. It's absolutely fine. It's a tough last name. And on Instagram, I'm at DDURCH, at DDurch, and it's a great way to follow my projects as they come.
Oh, yeah, and she really posts these really beautiful photos of her work, so you should absolutely follow her to just get a little dose of art in your day. And now, Leah, where do people find you?
Well, if you want updates from Indivisible, from me, as well as all the other good folks at Indivisible on politics and how you can take action in our analysis of what is going on in the world right now, you can get that by signing up at indivisible.org. And if you want my personal, much less polished takes, you can follow me at I guess it's x.com/Leah Greenberg. Gosh, we're just going to keep calling it Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Leah Green B.
Folks, you know where to find me. And I just wanted to say that you can buy your t-shirts. We're only doing optimism t-shirts at neginfarsad.com. Thanks to the couple of listeners who actually emailed me to say that the link wasn't working or whatever. It's been sorted out. I don't know. There was a problem that had nothing to do with me. Maybe it was because Elon Musk's Twitter Spaces was running my t-shirt store for a moment.
Yeah.
But anyways, there was like a glitch, and theoretically we handle it, so you should be able to go back. To buying the t-shirts. Crop Top still in the lead, by the way. We're only doing optimism t-shirts. If you're out there for classic t-shirt, go show your support, because like I said, Crop Top is really doing its job. And also, just a reminder, I'm going to be in Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Atlanta in the weekend after Labor Day weekend, doing the Wait, Don't Tell Me stand-up tour. It's always a really good time. If you're in any of those towns, I would love for you to come out and see it, and you can see all of those dates also at neginfarsad.com. And I also want to just let you guys know that I discovered this wonderful kids series of educational videos on YouTube called Oopa's World of Words. You can Google Oopa, O-O-P-A, and she has a fantastic little series on the election. So if you have young kids in the 3 to 8 year old range and you want to figure out how to talk to them about elections, about democracy, this is a great resource. Again, it's Oopa's World of Words. And if you have, I just want to thank everyone who makes the show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire. Thanks to everyone at Headgum. Thanks to Gaby Alter for our theme music. You can reach us at faiththenationpodcast@gmail.com for any questions or concerns or ideas. And again, go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad to support the show. And otherwise, we'll be back in your earballs next week.
That was a Headgum podcast.